The blood debt. The blood debt, when desperation meets predators. Kachara was a village that time had forgotten. The earth cracked under the relentless sun, wells ran shallow, and roofs leaked more than rain. Debts, hunger, and the small cruelties of life pooled in the courtyards. People moved with the tired economy of a village, surviving on what it had already spent. Hope was a rumor, until the wolves came. In a single month, the pack had claimed more than a dozen lives. Men were dragged screaming from their huts. Children vanished on the way to school. The night began to keep its own counsel. The howls threaded through the village like an accusation. Men slept with knives under pillows. Mothers braided their children into the center of the mats and whispered prayers until dawn. The story reached the state newspaper, and then the convoy. White SUVs, blue flags, sirens cutting the dry air. The chief minister mounted a raised platform in the square and found a silence that wanted answers. "My brothers and sisters," he said, voice calm but firm, carrying over the murmurs. "What has happened here is a tragedy for Kachara and a stain on this state. These attacks cannot continue. From today, police and forest officers have shoot-at-sight orders. We will remove this threat without delay. And for the families who have lost loved ones, the state will step in. Each family will receive 5 lakh rupees. I know no sum can replace a life, but we will make sure no widow, no orphan is left without means. Kachora will not be forgotten." The crowd breathed as one. For most, the words were a small lifeline. For Shamlal, they were a bell. Shamlal was a small man in a small ruin of a house. He drank to keep the world blurry. He gambled to feel a quick rush of imagined luck. He struck his wife to scare her silence back into her. Everyone in the lane had a story about a loan he'd never repaid, a promise he'd broken, a night he'd staggered home with blood on his hands. He carried his debts in his pockets and shame under his tongue. The chief minister's promise, 5 lakh rupees, glowed like a cruel coin in his mind. 5 lakhs could erase the past. 5 lakhs could buy the silence of creditors. 5 lakhs could buy a fresh bottle every night. It was not an abstract. This was survival, as he convinced himself. He sat outside the hut and watched his 6-year-old daughter sleep, a small, hollowed thing hugging a ragged doll. Mina's ribs showed beneath the thin fabric. Her hair smelled of dust and the single bar of soap she sometimes got. His wife pretended to sleep. She had learned to make her bruises a language the world ignored. Shyamlal's mind turned over the thought again and again. Throw her to the wolves. Get the money. Pay off the debt. Live. Then reason hit. What if someone sees? Someone will suspect. Jail is worse than debt. My debts are nothing compared to a cell of stone. He took another swig of liquor, trying to make the fear dissolve, but conscience would not be drowned. The little face of Mina came unbidden, smiling with mango juice on her lips, asking questions he did not want to answer. And yet the promise of 5 lakhs burned hotter. I am drowning, he thought. Better she dies than I do. Better she dies than I starve, beaten and broken. Life is cruel anyway. The struggle inside him lasted hours. He calculated, rationalized, begged himself not to feel. If I do it, creditors vanish. My wife won't starve. I can drink, gamble, and not look over my shoulder. The world owes me this chance. And then another thought cut sharper. But she is my daughter. And what does that make me if I do this? The world will hate me. The forest will have my name. The children in the village will know. I will never forgive myself. Shamlal clenched his fists. He staggered around the courtyard, muttering curses at the world, at gods, at debts, at his own cowardice. His conscience battled greed, fear, and habit in a cruel, exhausting war. Finally, the decision hardened like concrete. I have no other way. At dawn, He led Mina to the forest edge. "Where are we going, Baba?" she asked, skipping lightly, trusting. "To buy you a new dress," he lied. The forest hung at the village edge like a held breath. Shadows shifted. The first wolves watched, patient, indifferent. Shamlal shoved Mina forward and ran. The chase was relentless. Roots snagged his boots. Dry leaves snapped under his weight. The wolves pressed with perfect precision. His lungs burned, his heart hammered. Fear sharpened every sense. One wolf lunged. He stumbled, hitting the ground. Scrambling to his feet, he realized reason was useless. The forest had become a cage, and fear the bars. He screamed, raw, ragged, desperate. "Help! Somebody! Take her, not me!" His voice tore through the still morning. His own terror filled his ears. Shamlal clawed at dirt, pushed his body forward, legs and arms trembling, muscles screaming. The forest seemed to shrink, shadows tightening. Every step was agony, every breath a desperate plea for life. Then it was over. Silence fell like a heavy blanket, broken only by the wind through the trees. Villagers later would hear the echo of his screams and shiver, knowing a desperate, foolish plan had ended in the forest's absolute judgment. Mina sat a short distance away, trembling, wide-eyed. She had survived, untouched. Her chest rose and fell with uncertainty, her mind struggling to comprehend. Fear clung to her like a second skin, but she was alive, and the 5 lakh rupees promised by the government were hers. The villagers whispered of justice and fate. Some spoke of divine retribution, some of karma. All understood the lesson. Some gambles take everything, leaving only absence and regret. And in Kachhaura, the wolves still roamed, silent witnesses to human greed, folly, and the fragile line between life and death.